Sexually disciplined men are more attractive to women, but most people have no clue why that is exactly, including the women themselves. Now, why should you listen to me about this? Well, because I sucked tremendously at attracting women for a very long time, until I realized what actually builds attraction. And so in this video, I would love to share with you how to unlock the power of saying no. Because attraction is built through containment. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't just about attracting a bunch of women, but as a way to build more confidence and self-respect for yourself. Because men are not found, they don't find themselves, they build themselves, especially through sexual discipline. So for most of my teenage years, I had really bad social anxiety, and so I decided to become a biologist, which I did, by the way, because I couldn't stand people, so I figured I'll just be around animals instead. Of course, the actual reality was that I couldn't stand myself around people, which are two different things. But now eventually, of course, your hormones kick in, and I was like, fuck, I can be invisible and expect women to notice me at the same time, right? Also, being a bird watcher didn't really help my case. So luckily, around the same time, I also discovered semen retention. And as I closed one door on porn and ejaculation, another door opened. And suddenly women who would normally just completely ignore me started to pay attention, but not for the reasons you might think. Now, what happens when you close that door is that you stop leaking sexual energy, literally because you're retaining semen, but also mentally and emotionally because you become more aware of how you're getting sucked into, for example, thirst traps. And so the first step to containment is to actually seal the container. And what you're containing is life force energy. And so while most attraction is felt by women, it also can be seen. And as you're containing life force energy, it will make you not just feel, but also look more alive. Now, some people will say, well, what about the science, bro? Well, to me, this is just common sense, right? What gives life also sustains life, and that's what semen does. It builds vitality and immunity, which signals good health, and good health is attractive. But that's just the beginning. There is a signal that's even stronger than this one. Because all of this takes a tremendous amount of discipline and perseverance, which signals strength, which is also highly attractive. Plus, each time you say no, you are raising your own standards, and women never select down, they always select up. It's a bit like saving money. For example, each time you say no, you're putting money in the bank because you don't want the cheap stuff. You are saving up for quality. And so as you go about this, you are building your own confidence and self-respect because you are increasing in value yourself as well. And so discipline is an honest signal of strength, just like all the other forms of discipline, not just sexual discipline. And that's why being jacked is also very attractive, because it's an honest signal of strength. You can't fake a six-pack, right? And so once you understand this, then each time you say no, it will start to feel like winning. And, like each time you turn away from a thirst trap will feel like a small victory, and eventually it becomes kind of like a game. But it goes even deeper than that, because you see, health and strength are indeed highly desirable by women, but women don't just want a capable man, they also want a safe man. Unless maybe you're Genghis Khan or something, but your self-control translates to them into safety and integrity. And so if you have self-control, your words mean something because you can back them up by actions, which doesn't only make her trust you more, but it also makes you trust yourself more, which allows yourself to express your sexual desire more fully without the fear of losing control of it. And that means that sexual discipline gives you more sexual freedom, because now it's intentional, it's meaningful, and it's powerful. And so because it's so intentional, she knows that when she is chosen, it is actually real. It's a choice, not a compulsion. And so a sexually disciplined man is never chosen. He chooses her always. And that's what makes him magnetic and attractive. Now, all of that, however, became a whole new problem to me, because that boy with social anxiety didn't just magically disappear. And at this point, he was actually quite enjoying this newfound power and unlimited amount of sex. And I wasn't entirely oblivious to this, and I was generally on a healing path. But there was this other part of me that was still compensating for this inner lack, right? And this is what eventually had me landing on the path of Tantra, where I could seemingly merge these two parts of me and call it sexual healing. And that's how this guy turned into this guy. Now, eventually, you can only run so far, right, until your old identity catches up with the new identity, which are both fake, by the way. And so eventually, I had to close that door as well, because calling casual sex sacred didn't just make it so. There is a purpose to sex that goes beyond just pleasure. And even just saying, oh, this is in service of my awakening or whatever, it still means that it's just about you. And what woke me up to this fact was becoming a father myself and experiencing the power of sex outside of myself. And so, sure, sex is sacred, but it's because its potential to create life, not because it makes you feel all tingly on the inside. And so sex became my idol in a way. And so it was time to raise my standards again. And so I asked myself, who holds the highest standard? And that's how I ended up at Christ, which isn't quite what I expected at all, but I went with it. And so my moral compass got significantly calibrated since. And that's how I ended up from this guy into this guy. It's a work in progress. My point being that sexual discipline shapes and refines you. Each time you say no, you are kind of like chiseling away a part of you that no longer serves yourself. Not to deny yourself, but to deny the world and all of its temptations. And so that means that we're still saying yes to our desire on the inside because it's inherently good, but we're saying no on the outside through sexual discipline as a way to redirect the desire to greater things. And so you'll have to walk this narrow path between sexual suppression and sexual indulgence. In the beginning, that path is very, very wide, and you cut out the obvious like porn, masturbation, ejaculation, and then the path becomes more narrow, right? You cut out casual sex, and eventually, you start to become aware of your gaze, and you want to lower your gaze, and you want to guard your heart, etc. And that is mastery. It's the distillation and purification of the self until only the essence of you remains. And it's at this point that your desire and God's desire for you become one and the same thing. And so it becomes less and less about being magnetic and more about attracting what's actually meant for you, and which will naturally happen as you become more authentic and integral to your natural original self, which, yes, will make you more attractive, but only to specific people with a specific purpose. And so in the end, sexual discipline doesn't just make you attractive to anyone, it makes you attractive to the right one. Well, that escalated quickly, so let's bring this all home into a takeaway that you can apply right now. So sexual discipline does make you more magnetic because it builds vitality, strength, and trust, which to women signals that you are capable and a safe man. Not just to get whatever you want, but to become who you're actually meant to be. And so that means that magnetism is more like a reward of sexual discipline rather than the actual goal or the destination. And if you want to practice sexual mastery, you'll be walking a narrow path between sexual suppression and sexual indulgence, and constantly asking yourself, like, what do I really want? And then saying yes to that and no to everything else, which is only possible by deeply embracing your desire and saying yes to your desire on the inside while keeping it contained on the outside. And progressively redirecting this desire to a higher and higher purpose, which I believe is ultimately God, right? Because what else could it be? And so as Saint Augustine beautifully says, he says, the heart is restless until it rests in him. So guys, thanks for watching. There are a few spaces left. I think a couple of spaces in the private mentorship. If you're interested in this, click the link below. Other than that, I will see you again next week.